All right, welcome back, Kevin. We'll let you share and uh, guide us through the live demo in the EBS application.
Great, Jason. I wanted to see what happened when the countdown hit 0. It looked like it was starting to go back up.
Yeah, start adding time.
Yeah. So give me 1 second. I'm going to share my screen. All right. Did that work?
Yep, we see it.
Great. Good morning, everybody. As Jason said, my name's Kevin Farrell, and I am the business analyst at GCC, and I work with our online grants management system, which has been mentioned several times already this morning, called EBS. Prior to this position, I was a grants administrator. And when I last looked a few minutes ago, there were 214 attendees in the room, and I scrolled through the names and saw a lot of names that I recognized from my time as a um, grant administrator. So good to see some familiar names, but also really good to see a lot of new names. I hope that is indicative of new agencies uh, seeking funding. We'll let you guys know that we have a great staff. Our planning staff is great. They can help you with your application. What I can do is help show you how to enter the application, not necessarily what goes in the application, but I'll show you how to access the system and how to enter your application. Also, I'll mention I'm getting over a cold, so I think the good news is um, that I'm the only thing standing between you and lunch. The bad news is I don't know how long my voice is going to last, so we'll see. But I'm going to show the system, but before I log in, I wanted to start with how to access the system. So the topics I'll cover are how to access the system. Then I'm going to show the system itself, a demonstration, both the subrecipient profile and the application. Then I'll talk a little bit about using EBS for grant management and also some resources that are available to you to help you with the EBS system. Before I start, let me tell you, EBS stands for Enterprise Business System. We have been using this for right at 2 years. October of 2023 is when we moved from a system called GEMS to a system called EBS. So this is our going into our 3rd year using the system. It is owned by the state and managed and built by the state. It's actually built by Department of Transportation. So if you deal with their help desk or when you're getting your access, you'll get emails that end in at NCDOT. So that's why you're seeing Department of Transportation emails. Is this system is actually managed out of the Department of Transportation, but they work with us to build the features and the things that we need to manage our grants. So like was said before, each user must submit an application in order to access EBS. So if there are, I can't tell you how many folks at your organization you would have, but it's anyone who will interact with the grant. So the person who is applying for it, the person who will submit reimbursements, the person who will submit performance type reports, the authorizing official who will log in and certify, just verify that everything is correct. That's 4 kind of roles right there. I can't tell you if that's 2 people in your organization or if it's 4. So, but each user who needs the access to the system must complete this application. So the application is available at this website. You can, when the slides are available online, you can click on that, or you can use the QR code in the corner and it will take you to the form. And I'm going to show you the form now. And that's what we just call it the form. It's the access form. So at the top, it says Enterprise Business Services External Access Application. So what you're going to do is fill this out for each user and submit it. The first thing you'll do is select agency, and this is which uh, type of grants are you applying for? Are you applying for access for? We would definitely be Governor's Crime Commission, DPS. This also shows you the other kind of organizations across the state that use this EBS system: Division of Water Infrastructure, Parks and Rec, Division for Women and Youth Involvement, Pandemic Recovery Office. So, there are a lot of large organizations across the state use this, but you will select Governor's Crime Commission to get our information. As Sandy and Navin were saying, you will have to enter an NCID below. There are two types of NCIDs. There are state and local employees. State and local government employees have what we call an NCID, and then individuals, so nonprofits, other types of companies will have an individual, and that's called a My NCID. So the form just says NCID, but it's really either an NCID or a My NCID. And the form here has links that will take you to each. So if you are a state government employee, you probably already know your NCID. The folks who may not have one are nonprofits and other organizations. You would need to click individual. That will take you to the My NCID system. And you'll fill out this form. This is a North Carolina form, so I'm not super familiar with what all is on it, but that is how you will register to get your My NCID. So scrolling down, there's just some general information here, like your name, last name, first name. I will note that what you enter here must match exactly whatever is in your account for your NCID. So if your name is, well, let's just fill it out for me. It's trying to fill it out for me. And that is one thing, I would not let it autofill. Please type in your answers here. I've noticed when people autofill that we get some errors, but your name must match exactly. So if your name is Mary Jones, Smith in your NCID, please don't put MJ Smith or Mary J Smith. It must match exactly to the letter what is in your NCID. So before you go here, I would go to log into your NCID and check your details there. But last name, first name, middle name, if it's in your NCID, and then organization name, your legal name of entity that's registered with the Secretary of State. So I review these forms, and a lot of times I see people put NC or North Carolina here, and I'm not sure. I think that's autofilling. I think they're kind of autofilling, and that's what's falling in that box. So make sure that your organization name here is like, Chatham County. Whatever your organization name is what should be there. An address is required, city, state, zip, phone. Email, again, must match exactly what's in your NCID account, or it will be rejected. And then your organization tax number. So, and that's usually a number like 2 digits dash 5 more digits. So you will need your tax ID. That's kind of the unique number in EBS that sets up an account for you. And then at the end, you will select roles, and the only role available is subrecipient. So that's what you would select as subrecipient access to the system. And then you must generate a code. You'll copy and paste or type that code in, and then submit this application. So that's kind of the application. Each person who needs access will need to fill this out and submit it. It first comes to GCC, and then we look over it and verify that the information is correct to our knowledge, and it's an okay person to have access to our grant system. And then we send it to the DOT team that I mentioned before, and they actually set up the account and will send you the welcome to EBS note of how to log in, how to access your account. So that is the access. I will say it takes up to 3 or 4 business days for that to occur once you submit it. So allow for some time, allow for 3 or 4 business days to get through our review and then to EBS for their review to NCDOT. I will say there are peak times that we get a lot of requests, and right after the workshops is one of those times. So I expect to see a spike today, tomorrow, next week of a lot of you trying to get in and get access. So bear with us as we're reviewing those, and if there's anything that needs to be changed, you'll probably get an email back from me saying, I need you to resubmit because something was wrong, and I'll let you know what's wrong. I saw a question pop up: is there a limit to the number of users? There's not a limit. Some organizations would have 2, some might have 3 or 4, but I don't think it's something where everyone in the organization needs to see it. Only folks who have a real business reason to see the grant information should have access. So those who are applying, those who may have financial oversight or submitting reimbursements, those who are submitting results or performance information, and then of course whoever the authorizing official or the institutional head of the organization would probably need to review stuff, and there are some things that that person needs to certify. So I can't tell you there's not a limit, but just make sure that whoever's requesting access has an actual business need for the system. So I will go back to my slides now. And I mentioned that you must have an NCID or my NCID first. We mentioned that there are 2 types, one for government employees and one for other organizations. I mentioned that your name and email address need to match exactly what's in your NCID account. And then I talked about how long it takes, a few days. We review it first, and then it's sent to EBS security team, and they set your account up. So the next thing I'm going to do is log into the actual EBS system. Before I do, let me tell you a couple things about it. So I'm going to be logging into a test system, which will not look 100% like what you're going to look at. It's going to look 90% like what you're going to look at, though. So it's a good copy of the system, but there are a few changes. I'll try to point those out if I see them. The other thing is there may be data in here that doesn't make sense or that explicitly go against something that's a rule. And if so, just ignore that if you can for me. I may put in that a piece of equipment is $5,000 and it should be, over 10,000, as Sandy and Navin were just saying. So, some of the data may not make sense. Again, I'm the person who helps with the system, not necessarily what's in it, the actual information. So I'll do my best in it, but you may see something that doesn't make sense. So just try to overlook that. So once you get an account, you will log in. The login screen will look like that. I'll show it in a second. And I'm going to demo 2 areas of the system. First is the subrecipient profile, and second is the actual application. So in order to submit an application or submit a successful application, you need both of these parts. The subrecipient profile is information about your organization. So about your company, your organization, your agency. These are organizational details that we need for reporting and other things. Uploading organizational documents. Sandy mentioned that a little bit earlier, that there are documents that each applicant must fill out and submit. That is where you do those, is in the profile. And you can also submit changes or updates to your profile. So once you submit one of these documents, we will approve it for a certain amount of time. It may be approved for 1 calendar year or for 2 calendar years. And then someone will need to go in and update that document from time to time. So I'll show that in a second. Also think about the subrecipient profile is kind of the one place for your organization. So whether you apply for 10 grants or 2, you only have to enter this information once. There was a point in time where you would have to enter this information for each of the 10 grants you apply for. So that's part of what created the subrecipient profile. And then at the end, we'll look at the application itself, how to complete the details. We'll look a little bit at how to create the project budget, and then I'll talk about submitting the application. So let me log into the system. Give me 1 second. So this is what the login screen will look like. You will put in your user ID and password. Again, this is a test system, so I'm not in production. So anything you see, anything you see in here is not real. It's a test system. Bear with me 1 second. I'm looking up a password. All right, so this is what the system looks like when you first log in, and there are a couple things here I'll point out to you. These are called tiles, these boxes, and they're each labeled with what is in that section. So this section is for applications, and an application turns into an agreement once it is awarded, and then a section for submitting reimbursements, change request, progress and performance reporting, and then the subrecipient profile. So these are tiles that will take you into different parts of the system. In the top right-hand corner, it's going to tell you your name and kind of your information. This is also where you sign out. This is, again, this is a test system. So if Angela Richardson is on the call, this is not your actual account. It was set up based on your account. You can move these tiles around as you see fit. Also, I'll just say that you notice these say GCC on them. If you have access to multiple agencies, so if you also have access to Governor's Highway Safety Program, you'll have a different set of tiles for them. So they may have one called Applications, and underneath it, it would say Governor's Highway Safety Program. But these are the 5 tiles that are specific to GCC. So I'll start with the subrecipient profile. The first thing you'll do is click there. If this is the first time you have accessed it, it will say this is the first time you're accessing it, and we're setting you up a new one. Otherwise, it will just fill out, it will just populate with your information that's already been entered. If you need to make edits, you'd press the edit button at the top right hand corner, and that kind of opens things up that you can change, and then submit at the bottom. So first, I'll talk a little bit about just EBS itself, the way it's set up. The form that you're on or the page that you're on, the title is always at the top. So this is the subrecipient profile. Then it's your organization information. There's usually a number, that's useful. So if you were calling in and saying, "Hey, I'm with Rocky Mount. This is my subrecipient profile number," that would help us look it up. At the top is what we call the header section. There's usually a status and some dates. This is for all forms, not just the subrecipient profile. But then the thing I really wanted to point out is that this bar at the top here is how you navigate the form itself. So this is the same thing you'll see with the application, that you click through the different areas. So think of each of these as a tab or a page or a section that needs to be completed. And I'll talk just a little bit about the sections here. Again, I don't know what to put in these, but I know how to put it in. So general information is just general information about your organization. You cannot adjust the name, but you can put in a secondary name, doing business as name if you need to. Your UEI number would be there, and your tax ID number would be there. You will select your type of organization. The options are nonprofit, state agency, and local government. And this is important because the organization documents that you must submit are different based on what you choose here. So if you choose nonprofit later in the form, you're going to be prompted for forms to submit that are about nonprofits. If you were to select state agency, you would get forms for state agencies. So that's an important variable. Website, phone number, just general contact information, and information about your organization here. Demographics is basically for some reporting that GCC does. So we need to know, what congressional districts, what counties, what's your principal place of performance, so that we can, report on where funds are distributed. The next section is key personnel. So the 3 that are here are authorizing official, financial officer, and organization admin. And I'll note that this is for your entire organization. So you don't see project director here because project director is a project by project person, and you'll put that in the application. But these contacts, the authorizing official and the financial officer, both copy to every application. So once it's set up here, all applications for this organization will have Peter Varney as their authorizing official until someone comes in here and edits it and changes it and submits the change to us. I will say this org admin at the end is the person who will be notified when these organization documents expire, or if there's something that needs to be done to your profile, this is the person who will be contacted. So we looked at information, demographics, contacts. I'll next look at org documents. And this is where I was saying earlier that there's a list of documents you need to submit. So it says, please upload the required documents for your application. These documents will be assigned an expiration date by GCC. So you would select a document type, and here are the types. I think there's around 20 of them, depending on what type of organization you have. And then you would select it and hit upload, and it's going to pull up your computer to where you select the file. I will just go ahead and notice this one already has 19 in there. And I don't know exactly how they're sorted. I think they should be sorted by expiration date. You notice these don't have an expiration date yet. Some do. Here we go. So no, it doesn't appear they're sorted by expiration date. But what I'm trying to show there is that when you upload something, it will show you the document type you selected. It'll show you the file name. And then it will also give you who submitted it and the expiration date once it's been reviewed. So these documents here, single audit certification, de minimis letter, these have been reviewed and were given expiration dates of January 26 and June 26. So you will need to go through and enter something for each of these types of documents. If one, for some reason, does not apply to you, you still have to put something in. You would have to put, for de minimis certification, if you're not using indirect cost, you would put in a letter that just says, our organization does not seek recovery of indirect costs, or, we don't use an indirect cost rate. So you've got to put something in each of these document types or document slots, and that will then unlock your ability to submit the subrecipient profile. Once documents expire, they'll move down to the bottom, and we'll keep a kind of a history of all your old documents. That's for audit and other reasons that we need to keep documents on file for a period of time. Then the last section up here in the header of the navigation tool is certification. And this is the only thing that has to be done by a certain person. So the authorizing official must be the one who comes in and selects that I have certified that these are accurate to the best of my knowledge. And then that authorizing official must also be the one to submit it. So that's the only thing that's that right now in the system is, a certain person or certain individual has to do it. So the authorizing official has to certify and then submit the subrecipient profile. So we looked at all the areas that they're here to fill out. Again, this is just information about your organization. It may already be set up, and if so, you just, for this round of applications, you just need to go in, double check that everything is correct. If you do need to make any changes, hit the edit button, make the changes, and then again, have your authorizing official submit it, and it will be reviewed by GCC staff. So that's the subrecipient profile. That's part one of your application. That's kind of setting up the relationship between your organization and GCC. The second part of your application will be under this application area or tile. So I'll click in it, and it's going to show you all your applications. Again, this is a test system, and there's a lot of things I've set up in here as test cases. So you may or may not have this many current applications. but you'd have any historical applications at the bottom, whether they were completed or you started one and canceled it. So everything will show here. If you have a project or application that turns into a funded project, it would still be listed here, and you could access the agreement from there. So what you'll do on this page for this section is starting an application, is you will hit the button that says create new application. And then you're going to be presented with a list of program areas. We call them priorities, program priorities, for which you're applying to. These will be spelled out in the RFAs, so you'll know which one to click on based on what you read in the RFA. For this one, I'm going to do 2026 test program priority. It's this last one. It has an ID number. I think our RFA will give you both the program name and the program ID number. Regardless, you find the program name that you're applying for. Again, I'm applying for 2026 test program priority, and click on the program ID. And it says you're about to create a new application. Are you sure? If not, please start over. Yes, I'm sure. I want to start a new application. You will not have to do that. That's something for my account where I had to select an organization. And then this is the application. Again, at the top is what we call the header level. There's just basic information. The only things here that you can edit are the project name. And you'll be instructed in the RFA what to put as your project name. And then your indirect cost rate. So if your indirect cost rate is 10%, you put 10 there. So those are the only things you can adjust at this header level. Otherwise, these details are pulled from the program. So the program name, the period of performance start and end dates, the amount of matching funds required, and the maximum budget that can be applied for are all pulled from the program information. So you can't edit those. But the areas of the application that you can and will fill out are again in this navigation section at the top. So I can kind of scroll through it, and you'll click on each area. So the first one is abstract and narrative. These are a series of questions. The first one says, briefly describe project's purpose, identity, target population, and discuss program components which address the problem. And it also tells you what the maximum characters are for this answer. So you would simply type your answer here and then move on to the next one. Please identify partners. You put that in. Project summary, you'll fill out. And then a timeline. So, and I also say that there may be more or less of these in your actual application. Again, this is just a test that I set up, so I didn't necessarily choose all the right questions that make sense for an application. But that's abstract and narrative, just kind of the words that describe your project. The next section are goals. You'll need to put in at least one, but a max of 2 goals, and you give it both a goal and an objective. So your goal 1 you would type in, we're not going to do goal 2, and then objective. There are different sections about your objectives. What is the objective? How are you going to measure it? And what is the method of evaluation for that objective? You have to have at least 1 objective, and you can have up to 4. The next area, and I'll use the top up here to bounce between the sections. The next section is officials. Again, your financial officer and authorizing official copied from the profile. So you cannot change those here. You change those in the profile. But what you do set up here is a project director. So name, phone, email, title. You set up that information here for the project director. Next section, implementing agency. So implementing agency is the organization that's actually implementing the project or doing the work. The classic example I give here is that, well, this is it. So Rocky Mount. So this agency is, I'll go back to the top. It says City of Rocky Mount. That's the actual subrecipient. That's who the checks will be made out to, right? Is City of Rocky Mount. But the implementing agency is the Rocky Mount Police Department. That's kind of the classic example I give of, a local government and their police department. But it could be a nonprofit and some subset of the nonprofit. But again, talk to your planner about what you may need to put in as implementing agency. If there are implementing agencies for your organization already set up, you would use the drop-down button to select it. Otherwise, you'll hit the new add button, and then you can start filling it out. I can never spell good when I'm doing a demo. So you would fill this out and then add it, and then it should be added as a new selection in the drop-down menu. But if you need to add a new one, put it there. Otherwise, look at your drop-down menu and see what's there. I'm going to skip over budget summary for a minute, but that's where we're going to go back and build our budget. I'll skip to general information. Again, most of this copies from your profile. Remember, I said the congressional districts and counties. All that's going to copy from your profile, except for population of the project area, since that is a project-specific type of number and may vary from application to application. That is something you would fill out here. There are other sections that may be relevant to certain funding sources. This qualifying information, I believe, is only for certain funding sources. So you would fill those out. And I'll note that some questions, if you answer a certain way, will then open up a box for you to put more information in. So for these questions, if you answer yes, that's your answer. If you answer no, then you have to give some more details. That's the qualifying information section. The certification section is a series of things that you're agreeing to or certifying that that are true based on your application. So you can read through those and check those if they are appropriate, and they may change from organization to from funding source to funding source. There may be different types of certifications. And then the last section is attachments. So you can attach certain documents to the application that you want GCC staff to see. There, you first have to give it a type. So you could say, you hit the drop down here, this is a letter of support from someone in the community. So you would hit that, then the upload button and select your letter of support, and it would attach here. Other types of documents include lease agreements, maintenance agreements, quotes for different equipment or supplies, MOUs with other organizations. So this is an area where you can place documents in support of your application or things that are needed to go along with your application to prove what you're applying for. So now I'm going to go back to the budget summary section. And this is not filled out now because there's no budget entered. But you'll notice there are 3 areas. There's a budget summary by expense group, and then the actual budget table. So as we add budget lines, these areas are going to grow and things will be added to it. So let me show you an example of that. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a line. So that's how you add budget lines. This is what we call them, budget lines, but budget items, things in the budget. This is where you add it. So you'll go to add lines. You'll select your budget year. As was mentioned earlier, some projects are more than 1 year. Your expense group is kind of the large bucket of expenses. This one is only set up to have equipment. You might see personnel here. You might see travel here. And then expense code is the next category or subcategory of equipment. Radios, cameras. I'm going to put radios for this one. And there may be an other or a please specify in your application that you would be using if what you're applying for is not listed here. Put in your requested amount. This is equipment, and I think Navin and Sandy said it must be at least $10,000 for equipment. So I'll put in 10,005. Things with a star, of course, are required. We're used to that, right? So an item description, you would put in, I can't remember the piece of equipment that Sandy mentioned earlier, but I'll just put in computer equipment. I'll be boring. And then this is where Sandy was also talking about putting in a detailed description if you need to put in any calculations of how these were, how this was calculated, especially for personnel type issues. But you could put model numbers, serial numbers, things in this detailed description. This button for indirect relevant is whether or not you are seeking indirect recovery for against this amount. I'm going to put no on this because typically for equipment you're not seeing indirect cost related to equipment. But if it were, we would select the indirect, and then it would apply our indirect rate to it. And if it were 10%, it would add $1,050 to the budget and indirect costs. So I'll hit OK. It takes us back to the table or to the budget section, and as I said, it starts to build for us. So it said, okay, you put in equipment, $10,500, and there's your budget line for radios. I'm going to add a second line just so you see what it looks like. So there's the second line added in the budget, and you'll see in the summary that it totaled both of our equipments together, 10.5 and 17.5 to 28. You see there are different columns here for year 1, year 2, year 3. This program is set up for up to 3-year budgets. So I'll go in and add a line for year 2. And again, this doesn't necessarily make sense that you would be putting both radios and cameras, but I'm just doing this as a demonstration. So now we see year 2 amount into. So year 1 amount, year 2 amount, it totals at the end. And at the bottom in the actual budget table, it shows year 1, the 2 lines I entered for year 1, and the 1 line I entered for year 2. So once you enter a budget line, you can then go back into it by just clicking somewhere on the line, not in the drop down, but in the line itself. So right there, it took me back into here, so I could change this to radio equipment. So you can go in and make changes to your lines that way. You can delete a line once so if I delete this year 2 line, I would then expect year 2 amount to go to 0. It did. So you can interact with that. You can make changes from this page if you entered this line and decided or realized that no, this isn't radios. This was supposed to have been cameras. You can switch it there. You can change your expense group if there are multiple expense groups for your program. You can change the years. So you can change any of those on the fly, or you can go into the item and make the changes here. I will add something as indirect just so that you see how it calculates an indirect expense. So let's put in $10,000. We'll put it in as year 1. Equipment, again, that might not make sense for indirect, but again, it's just a demo. So when I made that indirect relevant, you'll see it applied the 10% that we entered above against that $10,000 and made $1,000 of indirect cost. And then it also added a line here in the summary of $1,000 of indirect cost. Your budget total is always this total amount right here. Note that this is only your federal share. This is not including the match share, unless you were to put in lines that were to indicate match. So once you fill everything out, and I'm not sure I have enough in here to save it, but let's see. So once you put in enough information, you can save. Down at the bottom right-hand corner, there's a back button to save and submit. So let's save it and see if I've put in enough. Yeah, so it says I saved successfully. So now I can go back to this big list of applications, the back button. So now back to my list of applications, and here's the one that we just created. So I put in, it was for the test program. I typed in project name as the project name, and it's in a status of created. You could then cancel it. If you cancel it, it goes away forever. So only cancel it if you want it to start over or to not submit it. But once you save it, you can close the system, go back in the next day. You will do like I just did, go to the applications tile, go back into your application and work on it. Multiple people can access the same agreement. So if someone else in your organization needs to look at it or to fill in a certain part, the only thing I would caution you against is not to have two people in at the same time. That can cause some issues, but you should probably get an error message if two people are trying to edit it at the same time. But just kind of in summary, we looked at each of the areas, starting with the header level information, and then we looked at each of these sub areas or pages or tabs of the application. And then we talked about submitting and saving. Once you submit it, it's out of your, you can no longer edit it once you submit it. It is then in the hands of GCC staff. We can return it to you if you were to submit it by accident. That happened a couple of times last year where I had to go in and send it back to folks, which is fine. But just know submit means it's in our hands now. And there is a way that during the process, if you're selected for funding, that you may have to go in and make changes, and we can return the application to you at that point with notes that say, change this in your budget, or remove this, or decrease this amount. That's what we refer to as modifications. So after selections are made, modifying the agreement to make sure it's something we can fund. So that is the application. It may be longer. Your application may be longer based on the program and have more specific types of questions related to your program. I just set up a pretty basic application here to show you guys today. So again, once you log into EBS, just as an overview, you'll get these tiles. The two that you're most interested in during the application period are this application section and the subrecipient profile. You need to fill both out in order to submit an application. And I'll just make a note, if you are selected for funding, that's when these other tiles come into play, and we'll do a demo of that at another time. But if you need to change your budget once the project is open, you would use a change request. If you need to submit reimbursements, this is the tile you would use to submit reimbursement requests. If you're submitting some sort of progress or performance report, you would use this tile. And it's very similar. There's a section of current reports and past reports, and you would hit a new button to create a new report. Same exact thing for reimbursements, where you have current reimbursements and old reimbursements at the bottom, and then a button to create new reimbursements. So it's very similar in the way the system works. But right now you're just dealing with applications and subrecipient profiles. I'm going to switch back over to my slides for a second. If you access the slides after this presentation, if you go to our website, you're going to see that I have some slides here with notes and screenshots. I mostly did this in case I was unable to get in the system today, that I was going to walk through these slides and show you the screenshots. But afterwards, you can look through these yourself, and it kind of walks you through the application as well. But then I wanted to end with some EBS resources. So your grants planner and their contact information would be in the RFA, or your current grant administrator, if you have a open grant or have had an open grant with GCC, is a good resource for you. There is an online documentation user's guide on our website. If you click on this or use that QR code, it will take you to this user's guide. It's something you can print out. It's 20 pages or so of instructions with screenshots on how to use the system. I believe there is a section dedicated to how to complete an application. Yeah, so the application agreement style starts on page 11. It shows you how to apply for a grant, how to check the status, how to view historical applications. So there's some more information for you here. And then lastly, the EBS has a help desk, EBS support at ncdot.gov. That's who you would contact with kind of first system issues, error messages, unable to log in, stuff like that. You would report that to them. You may eventually get to me if there's an issue we need to work with, but start with the help desk, and they kind of triage those requests, especially related to login errors or errors related to entering information. So it's 10:56. My voice made it through 56 minutes. Are there any questions, Jason? Do we need to look at questions or anything else you want me to cover?
Couple quick questions. So
Okay.
one, you talked about the characters and the number of characters for some of the different places in the application. Do these include spaces? So when you're looking at 300 characters, does each space count as a character?
Yes.
Okay. And another question, are there any upcoming changes that we're working with our developers that they may see in the application when they get ready to fill out the application?
So there, if you filled out an application last year, there was a section that should have only been for, I believe it was VOCA and VAWA applications, but it somehow was included for everyone. It was the I forget what it was called, fundamental something questions. So that should be changed. Another thing that is new this year that I should have pointed out, give me 1 second, I'll show it, is once you start creating your budget, you can now download it to Excel, this export button here. And this also goes for open projects or projects that are ongoing. You can go into your agreement and download your budget. And the neat thing about that is then it will show you, how much has been reimbursed, how much is remaining to be reimbursed for each line. But that is new this year, the export button.
And you indicated in the subrecipient profile that in order to hit submit, you had to fill in each one of the different areas of the subrecipient profile, the items that are requested. When you complete or an item, does that get saved in there? I mean, can they exit out of that and come back to it and do the rest of them later, like do them one at a time?
Yes. So I'll show an example of that. I'm going to delete these. Let me delete a indirect cost letter. That's a good one to delete. So I just deleted their indirect cost letter. I'm going to now select indirect cost letter. I'm going to upload a file that is named export 40. So right there, I see my file named export 40. is in as an indirect cost letter. I'm going to save it and then go out. Just hit that back button up there. I should have mentioned that during the demonstration. Anytime you are in something and want to go back, use this caret button. Don't use the back button of your browser. Use this button. If you can see my pointer there, this back button, not the back button of your browser. But so I just saved a file called export 40. If I go back down, it's right there. So yeah, it's saved, and let me go back into it.
Perfect. I don't see any other questions, Kevin. Appreciate it. And thanks for, I don't know what you're using as far as throat spray for keeping your voice, but you could probably market that.
Very good.
The next thing that we're going to do is take a lunch break. We're going to give everybody about an hour and 5 minutes for lunch here. So I'll share the lunch break countdown and hit start on the countdown. Everybody have a great lunch. We'll look forward to seeing you back here in an hour and 5 minutes.